Welcome to this week's episode of Wealth Talk. My name's Christian Rodwell, the Membership Director for WealthBuilders, joined today by our founder, Mr. Kevin Whelan. Hello, Kevin.
Hi, Chris. Good to be with you again. I think we were casually remarking that we'd been not in bed together, you know what I mean. We've been engaged together now we met 10 years ago.
Indeed. Yeah, 10-year anniversary.
I know it took you 5 years to realise, I had something worth latching on to, this powerful mission of Wealth Builders, and I'm so glad you're part of our team now and that you strategically run things. And I just want to put on record that how much I appreciate what you do and thanks for doing it. And when you look at the Trustpilot reviews we get, which we're always thrilled and I suppose, warmed and humbled by, it's always, this is what Chris has done, this is what Kevin has done. And so while you and I are often the front-facing part of the team, you with the youth and energy, he says, and me with the sagely wisdom. But we've got a great team behind us, haven't we? So I just want to, not like in an Oscar style, acknowledge, Paul, who takes care of all the SSAS and his team, and so many people behind the scenes. And that's part of the reason for this message, isn't it? We think that because so many people resonate with who we are, what we do, and how we do it, there's an opportunity for people to get involved with us and help spread this very powerful message of wealth and financial security and financial independence, basically being set for life instead of having to wait till your 60s and 70s for a life of uncertainty and compromise. Hey, that was a long-winded intro, but hey, it's heartfelt. I feel it, man.
Kind words. Thank you. I really do appreciate that. Yeah, amazing how quickly the time goes. And we met in London and ties in actually with our conversation today, which of course is all around the Cashflow 101 board game. We're going to be talking about this and the power of playing the game. But it was my journey of escaping the rat race 10 years ago. And I was on that transition. And actually, I joined a Rich Dad coaching program as part of that education right at the beginning. And I was sent a copy of the Cashflow 101 board game to play. And that's kind of where things kicked off for me. So this very week, we played in London. Wealth Builders hosted a Cashflow 101 night, and we had over 40 aspiring entrepreneurs there attend the game. And we had great fun, and everybody really, really enjoyed themselves. So we thought we'd talk about why Cashflow 101 is a good game to play. And of course, you can play with the whole family as well. And that's something that we love about sharing these financial lessons with the youth, but, stretching both ways across the whole generation of the family.
Yeah, I think I remember a recent Cashflow game where you hosted a different venue in London, but the person who got out of the rat race the fastest was somebody who was the son of one of our members who was 16.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just great to see people participating, and it doesn't always have to be serious about money. It can be just learning principles, but doing it in a safe environment, surrounded by nice people. And I think it's a great thing. And it's been, it's always interesting to me that as famous and renowned, and quite rightly, as Robert Kiyosaki is, and backed ably by his wife, Kim Kiyosaki, it was the cash flow game that was invented first. It wasn't the book. The game came first, and then the book was written really to promote and publish more about the benefits of the game. It's not a cheap game, it's not cheap to buy. And we've got a healthy stack of games now, but so come along and play, so we're trying to get this out and about. Obviously it's easy for us in London to do that, but wherever you are, all compass points, north, south, east and west, if you're interested in playing, you don't need to play on a board game just with your own family. You can come and play with like-minded people, and you'll learn some lessons and then talk about the practical application of what you can do in real life as well, because the game in many respects reflects real life, doesn't it, Chris? In terms of, although the language is American, the principles are the same.
Yeah, very much so. So for anyone who hasn't played the game, and I know there's many people when I kind of kick off the game nights, Kevin, I always share a few slides and I show the Rich Dad Poor Dad book and I say, has anyone read this book? And almost everybody has. Yeah. I think it's the book that's the trigger, the catalyst, the light bulb moment for so many people to actually understand that in order to build wealth, to have that freedom, you have to focus on generating cash flow from assets. You can't trade trade your time for money. And that's the big message in the book. But as you say, rightly, the game actually really puts you in the driving seat of understanding what your kind of personal psychology around money is. And it's very interesting to see how that plays out over the 90-minute period. So I'll just quickly explain kind of what the game setup is for anyone who's unfamiliar with it, Kevin. It's a big board. It's like a Monopoly board. You've got lots of pieces. You have the little rats, which are the players, and you put your cheese on the outside. But essentially, in the middle of the board, you have a circle, and that's called the rat race. And that's where most people spend their time day to day, going round and round
and round, right?
Never really escaping that time for money trap. And when you go round and you throw the dice and you obviously move across the squares, you pass payday. So that's collecting your salary every month and that goes in your bank account. But then it's deciding what you're going to do with that money. And of course, in real life, most people just spend that money, Kevin, and then they run out and then they get paid. And that's the cycle. But this game teaches you about actually doing deals and working with other people around the board. And we normally have about 5 or 6 people playing the game together. And you get the opportunity to buy small deals, which are $5,000 or less, because it's in dollars for the Americanism, but obviously we can convert that to pounds, or the big deals, which are bigger than that. So you start off with the small deals, and these mainly focus on the 3 asset classes that Robert Kiyosaki talks about in the book, which is property or real estate in his terms, paper assets, which is the investing, and business. So those 3 pillars, or assets, I should say. We of course focus on
pillars, yeah.
We focus on 7.
We got 7.
Yeah, so we expand upon that. And you get the opportunity to buy stocks. So it teaches you about the trading range of stocks. You could perhaps buy a stock today for $1, but the range is between 5 and 30. So that would obviously be a good deal. And you decide with the money that you have how much of these you're going to buy, and you get the opportunity to buy properties. And what it teaches you as well, Kevin, is of course the difference between investing for capital gains and investing for cash flow. And there's different strategies and ways you can play the game. Of course, you can buy lots of assets and feel very asset rich, but they're not generating any cash flow. And then you perhaps get the opportunity when you land on what's called a market card, where you can then sell some of these assets. And that's where you can realize some of those gains and, of course, then invest for other cash flow. So that's essentially the game, is to build up your recurring income, or as they refer to, passive income. And when your passive income equals or exceeds your expenses, then you've escaped the rat race, which is very much the method that we teach at WealthBuilders.
Yes, I mean, let's just reflect that a little, expand on it. Number one, just to deal with the language, we don't worry about dollars and pounds, and we don't do any conversion tables. It's just principles and ideas. The figures probably aren't realistic in terms of the prices you'd have to pay for these assets now. But I think what I would reflect on is, for the most part, the world of wealth and the way that it's spoken of and the way that it's marketed is really all about accumulation. That the reason 95% of the population don't become financially independent, Chris, is because they seem to be brainwashed into moving lockstep. Almost everybody does the same thing. We all do the same thing, so it must be right, which is sticking money into the stock market without the cash flow. In a previous episode, I've talked about why just investing for capital appreciation is not a recipe for wealth. Because here's the reason why. If you think every investment has got 2 dynamics to it, number one, you can invest for cash flow. It's what we prefer. Number 2, you can invest for capital appreciation. Now, if you're putting money into the stock market or your pension or your ISA, bring it to the UK language, then you're almost always investing for accumulation, because you're hoping that what the stocks and the funds that you buy, even if you don't understand the difference, you're in the stock market. You hope that one day, someday, that's just going to keep building and building and building. Well, we know it doesn't, because stock markets correct, stock markets crash, and so on. And the argument is always stay in the market, because that's the recipe for success. Well, the challenge I've got with that is when you get to, number one, it takes 40 years if you do that, or certainly 30 years plus. But when you get there, if you imagine you've got a tidy pot, and let's say in anybody's language, even with inflation, you've got £1 million in your pot, sounds like a decent sum of money. But now, in order to live, you've got to spend your money. In other words, you start spending the very asset you've created. So your pot gets smaller and smaller and smaller. It's like having loads of eggs in a basket or in a nest. Then you start cracking them and breaking them and you can't replace them. And that means, in many respects, the very lifestyle that you planned, the certainty, the security for you is now weaker because you're worried about what you're spending. And you didn't think that that was going to happen, but that's what happens. And then the second consequence, if you keep breaking eggs, you've got no eggs for the next generation. So the next generation become poorer, not just in terms of money, but become poorer in terms of wisdom. They don't learn anything from you. And I think that's why playing the game, making yourself understand the difference between cash flow and accumulation, cash flow and capital, while there's room for capital, lots of reasons why you might want to boost your wealth with occasional inflows of capital. But the core strategy for me and the core strategy for Wealth Builders and the core strategy for Robert Kiyosaki and his business is cash flow. You know, the cash flow is the way to build and secure that. And once you've got assets that give you a regular source of cash flow, and as long as you maintain it, which is the second point I want to make, Chris, which is while I understand the language Robert uses is passive, there is no such thing as passive. And I feel strongly that there isn't, because every asset of whatever complexity, whatever type of asset you use, always needs some element of maintenance. If it's a property, you need to maintain it. If it's a business, it needs to be maintained. If it's the stock market, you need to pay attention, not just leave it to drift on the market, but to get involved from time to time. And that's maintenance. And a small amount of maintenance can keep your cash flow going for life. And if you get multiple streams of income recurring in your life, then these uncertainties that happen will inconvenience you. They'll never devastate you. And that's the fundamental thing. So however you get that lesson, whether you're in a job or in a business, and the business owners that we meet, Chris, sometimes are the hardest to persuade, that they're focusing so much more on putting their eggs in the business basket, and that's it. You know, they're hoping one day the business sells. And all the evidence is that only 0.1% of UK businesses sell for more than £1 million. So the odds are not stacked in your favor to sell your business. So we encourage business owners, just like job holders, to use some of the cash flow they get from their business and redirect some of that into building assets. And if you use the concept which we speak a lot of in Wealth Builders now, which is the SSAS pension, a pension that gives you ownership and control over your pension life, then you can get the government to give you the tax back that you would otherwise have paid, so that you can invest the tax that you would have paid, or indeed the tax you've already paid, you can get the tax back and invest that instead. And that's got to be a smarter way to do things than just hope that, again, one day, someday, something's going to work out for you. It's not really a plan, it's a bit of a hope, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Yeah, no, good points indeed. And yeah, you're thinking about that maintenance point, whether it's intellectual property, you create something, yeah, the book or the course may be written, but you've got to maintain marketing and ongoing promotion of those things in order for them to continue to generate that income. Same with joint ventures, got to maintain that relationship, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly right, Chris. I was talking with one of the business owners that we connect with. You know, I wrote a book, you'll know, recently with Brad Sugars of Action Coach, and they've got a process they follow in business called the 6 steps. And I was talking to one of our connections in there, a guy called James Vincent. I said to him, James, you should never trust anybody who's got 2 Christian names. Something wrong, something. Anyway, we had a laugh, and he said, you know, we're updating the 6 steps. And even a business as successful as Action Coach is tweaking the language, because, you know, as the years move on, the language even changes, doesn't it? So they're changing their 6 steps. We update the 7 pillars from time to time, although I still haven't got pillar number 8. Still got that standing offer. If somebody can give me pillar number 8, another asset you can use to build wealth, put money in your bank account while you're asleep, and all the usual definitions that I'm hoping that many of our listeners will already know. Haven't got that, but we've tweaked the Wheel of Wealth, which is inside the program. We've changed debits a little bit. We've tweaked the leverage points, the FIRST. And if you want to know any of these things, just either put a link to them, Chris, or suggest people look for them in the podcast.
Well, let me pause you there. That's a great bridge, actually, for me to remind our listeners that we're actually hosting our next live webinar on May the
Oh, yeah.
29th. That's where we will be going through our entire 9-step roadmap, which will help anybody to move from financial insecurity to financial security. And that, again, is a roadmap which we have tweaked and evolved and developed over the years.
Yeah, and let's again be clear on language. It's important because we speak the language every day and we think we know what we mean. But, we were chatting to somebody recently and they said, what do you mean by financial security? Now, we thought we knew that it meant that all of the main expenses in your life are paid for from the flow of cash that comes from assets that you own. And she thought, oh, income security means I get a regular income and therefore that income is stable. So we're not talking about income stability, which is always temporary. If you've got a job, it will come to an end. If you've got a business, it will come to an end. We're not talking about income stability. We're talking about the flow of cash flow, recurring income streams that will at least cover the cost of your main lifestyle in terms of your bills and everything, which then gives you the freedom to be able to spend more time to accelerate that process to become completely financially independent, often within just a few years after reaching security. And for most people, security can be achieved if you're serious and committed, and that's the key. 3 to 5 years probably, and certainly we've seen enough of our members do it in 3. So it's a reasonable expectation to be able to reach it. So these principles are you can apply them. It's not rocket science, it's applied science, and you can apply them. And that's why getting involved with the program will give you a roadmap that will work if you follow it. So it's not that it doesn't work, it works.
Yeah.
And we've got enough evidence of that.
Yeah. So if you'd like to find out more about WealthBuilders membership and join Kevin and myself on that webinar, then head to www.wealthbuilders.co.uk and you will see at the top of the page there a button for you to join. Absolutely free. And we're doing 2 sessions on Wednesday, the 29th of May, one at lunchtime, one in the evening. So pick the one that suits you best. They'll both be similar, but we know that some people are working, so we try and cater for all needs.
Yes, and I have to say that the program offering is really aimed at UK residents. You can still apply the principles wherever you are, and we're more than happy if you live in another country to collaborate with you. But the offering is really for UK because it's designed for the UK tax system, the UK financial system, the UK legal system, just as Robert Kiyosaki's is really designed for Americans. So we need to be mindful of that because we have a lot of followers from different countries, Chris.
Indeed, we do. So we kicked off, Kevin, talking about connection, collaboration, why the power of cash flow brings people together. And I'd like to read out a review that's come in following the event on Monday from Diana, who said, I attended the Wealth Builders Cashflow 101 event in London this week. It was amazing, in capitals. It exceeded my expectations. The game was brilliant. Moreover, I enjoyed meeting like-minded people. Big thank you to the host. Greatly appreciated.
Yeah. So, thanks for hosting that, Chris. And, we'd like to be able to get more and more cash flow games played. And we're happy, to facilitate the purchase of the board games. But what we need is committed people who want to give back and want to help and facilitate, just as you facilitate so ably, Chris, because you've got to learn a little bit about that because you've got, the rules of the game, so some familiarity with that, the principles of the game, which I know you explain, and also there's a little video to play from Robert himself, isn't there? So what would people do, Chris, if they were interested in that?
Yeah, well, I'm really, really looking to get a group of people together. So wherever you are in the UK, we can help you to get your own cash flow games running. We'll support you with that. We've got a huge community of members across the UK, people eager to come and join you. So if you'd like to be a host, even if you've never played before, we can help you with that. So head to wealthbuilders.co.uk/cashflow. And you can see some pictures and some videos from our previous nights. And you'll see a form where you can just pop your name and email and let us know whether you're interested in being a host or even just being a helper, Kevin, because we always are looking for people to support us on the night.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, I don't know how many helpers you normally have there, 3 or 4, I think, per session. I think there are 5 or 6 tables. So 3 or 4 people is more than enough to do that, to welcome people, make them feel at home. And there's a real big benefit of being a helper. There's the benefit of, you're getting in for free. That's a benefit. And number two is, you're being seen by others as someone who is supportive, and therefore you give yourself a bit of social proof. You get to play, but also you get to learn the insights and the applications. So you're getting insider knowledge as well as being who you are. So if you're naturally got blaze energy, energy of people, you like being surrounded by people, then it's probably something you might want to give some thought to. So yeah,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
hope we can start expanding this way, way, way beyond the reaches of London. There's so many other places where some great venues, some great people. So hopefully, Chris, this is the start of a movement.
Yeah, most definitely. And, if you're listening now and you've never played, there is an online version. I think we should just mention that, Kevin. You can play Cashflow online, but it's a very, very simple version of the game. It doesn't really get you thinking. It kind of does it all for you. One of the real beauties of coming to a live Cashflow game is sitting around the board, is interacting with others, and also learning how to fill in your own income statement and your personal financial statement, because that's really what teaches you is your income, your expenses, but also your balance sheet. Every asset's got a liability, and it really does teach you something that we're not taught at school. We've never been shown these things as a child.
Yeah, so that sounds great. Well, let's hope we get a few takers there, Chris, and we get to meet some more nice people in other parts of the UK.
Definitely. Yeah, no, we're looking forward to seeing you at an event soon. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you do, and somebody who perhaps has got a board game at home, it's dusty, they've never played it, and they want to come along, then do share this episode with them. We would appreciate that. Don't forget, head to wealthbuilders.co.uk, where you can listen to all of the podcast episodes. We're on episode 243 now. So there's a whole host all categorized there for you. So you can go through and spend hours digging through the archives. And yeah, we will be here same time, same place next week, Kevin.
Until then, my friend. See ya.